Wherever you are listening or watching Radio Afinju, the time is 9 a.m.
Ẹ bá mi pè o. Àfínjú. Kí lorúkọ rẹ̀? Àfínjú. Rédíò. Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń wo Àfínjú. Lórí WhatsApp. Àfínjú. Instagram. Àfínjú. Facebook. Àfínjú. Lórí X. Àfínjú. Lórí YouTube. Àfínjú. Lórí TikTok. Àfínjú. Kí lorúkọ rẹ̀? Àfínjú. Ẹ bá mi pè o. Àfínjú. Rédíò. Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń wo Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń gbọ́ Àfínjú. Gbogbo èèyàn ló ń wo Àfínjú. Rédíò Àfínjú. Rédíò Àfínjú. Rédíò Àfínjú.
Yeah, Sound Sultan and Janinja. Kenneth, you know what they do. This one, of all my brothers, we don't go outside Nigeria. We don't jack more for Nigeria. Always try to look back, cause no place like home. You know what I mean? So Obama tell me say Ajoda Bile and a true man. Check this out. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh. Hey, Ajoda Bile. No matter where you go, make you not forget area. Oh, area. Oh. Na Naija tí òde bá ti lè padà wálé o, wálé o. How I wish, say, I fit reach you anywhere you dey, you dey far away. That one no say make you dey born area o. Motherland, yo. Chinedu, somebody borrow you a go. Make you travel, go Chicago. Remember Nnamdi selling car, so you go America. All these people when they raise you, still they stay for face me, I face you. Promise say you no go fashy them. Every other month you go they tashy them. Hillary, where you been promised to marry, still they wait, so boy she don't tarry. When she see you now inside ovation, you marry Onyibo from another nation. Use mago ghetto. Now your Onyibo wife don't know. Next thing you know, she don't go report you. Waiting you know, they don't deport you. I wish, say, I feel to reach you anywhere you day. You day far away. That's one.
Yes, there is no place like home. Home is where we come to rest after a very busy day's work. And I hope you always have it at the back of your mind that, yes, sometimes the grass may be greener on the other side, but there is no place like home. Home is where you get peace. Home is the place of rest, and I hope you remember that even as you go about your daily business. Good morning, and I welcome you to this morning's edition of the Dailies. This is where we look at the stories making front pages of all your national newspapers. And this morning with me, I have 5 newspapers that we'll be looking at the stories on the front pages of these papers. I have Daily Trust, I have The Nation, I have Nigerian Tribune, I have Punch, and I also have The Guardian. But before we look at the headlines, my name is Pearl Durotoye, and you can join the conversation and also listen and watch our video stream on Radio Afinju social media pages, especially Facebook, YouTube, X, all at Radio Afinju. Or if you would rather just listen to the audio stream, you can go to our website at www.afinjufm.com or go to radio.garden, search for Afinju, and you will find us there. The first story for this morning, I'll take it from the Daily Trust. The headline here says 2027 court asked to stop Jonathan from contesting. Court asked to stop Jonathan from contesting. Another headline here says Senate to debate systemic genocide claims against Christians in Nigeria. Senate to debate systemic genocide claims against Christians in Nigeria. Another headline from the Daily Trust as well says Shetima backs Dangote, Nigeria bigger than Pengassen, as also NNPCL links gas scarcity to strike. This is from the Daily Trust. Another headlines from the Daily Trust says Tinubu orders reduction of 2026 Hajj fare. And then moving on to the next paper we're looking at this morning, The Nation. The first story here says Council of State, Police Council meet Thursday. Another headline, Edun allocation to states rises by 111%. That's coming from Wale Edun. And then another headline here says President to oil workers, avoid strike that undermines economy. This is from The Nation as well. And then when we look at the Nigerian Tribune, one headline here says a health headline says choking during sex can result in stroke and paralysis. That's coming from the experts, and you can find this on the Nigerian Tribune. Another headline, retired AVM Obierika dies mid-air on British Airways flight. Another headline, ASU mobilizes members for nationwide strike. This can be found on the Nigerian Tribune as well. And then the last story we'll be looking at on the Nigerian Tribune, 2027 OB challenges INEC, others to address certificate forgery ahead of polls. Now moving on to the next paper for this morning, The Punch. Court remands Lagos accountant for alleged 200 million naira theft. Another story here says Enugu governor minister trade words over alleged certificate forgery. And then another story from The Punch here says Natasha resumes as Senate today after 6-month suspension. And then we'll do a little bit of sports from Punch Sports Extra. A story here says Nadozie goes top as goalkeeper with most saves in England. Another sports story, World Cup qualifiers, Eagles arrive South Africa for Lesotho clash. And then finally, we move on to the Guardian newspaper. The story on the Guardian says Awujale stole over 30 aspirants screened as more jostle for throne. And then we'll move on to the last story for today. Student loan now fund kicks as institutions hike tuition fees and charges for profit. So this and many more are the stories we'll be looking at as much as time permits. Overall, I have 5 newspapers here. If time permits, we'll look at all the stories I've highlighted from the front pages of our national dailies. I'll go on a very quick break, and when I come back, we will be looking at the stories. We'll be looking at excerpts from these stories and also point you in the right direction as to what pages to look at for each of the story. Don't forget, it's still the dailies on Radio Afinju. Yeah, welcome back. And now let's go into the stories from the headlines for this morning. The first story is coming from the Daily Trust. It says 2027 having completed the tenure of the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua and subsequently served a full 4-year term after winning the 2011 election, had already exhausted the constitutional limit of 2 terms. And furthermore, he gave more points. It says, and I quote, I know that if the first defendant eventually wins the forthcoming 2027 general election as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is for a term of 4 years spanning 2027 to 2031, he will have exceeded 8 years, being the cumulative maximum years a Nigerian president is to stay in office, Jideobi said. I mean, it does have a point, but that's the story from Daily Trust. And you can find more details on this story on page 15 of Daily Trust newspaper. The next story I have here says the Senate to debate systemic genocide claims against Christians in Nigeria. A motion sponsored by Senator Ali Ndume and co-sponsored by Senators Sani Musa and Aliyu Wamako and Ibrahim Bumai over alleged systemic genocide against Christians in the country is set for debate by Senate at resumed plenary today. Our correspondent reports, that's the Daily Trust correspondent reports, that senators and members of the House of Representatives will resume plenary today after their annual recess, which started on July 23rd, 2025. The motion, titled Urgent Need to Correct Misconceptions Regarding the Purported Christian Genocide Narrative in Nigeria, and the international community, cited by correspondents on Monday, called on the federal government, particularly the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and relevant security agencies, to adopt a data-driven approach to public communication. The senators also asked the Foreign Affairs Ministry and security agencies to ensure the release of verified casualty figures, contextual reports, and investigative findings on victims of insecurity to counter the spread of misinformation locally and abroad. Senator Ndume and other co-sponsors said the motion seeks to correct a dangerous misrepresentation of the country's security challenges as a campaign over Christian genocide. That's an excerpt from the story. You can find more details on this headline. Senate to debate systemic genocide claims against Christians in Nigeria on page 7 of Daily Trust. The next headline from the Daily Trust as well, this is coming from the Vice President. It says Shettima backs Dangote, says Nigeria bigger than Pengasan. Shettima backs Dangote, says Nigeria bigger than Pengasan. Vice President Kashim Shettima says Nigeria is bigger than any trade union. Shettima stated this in Abuja on Monday at the Nigerian Economic Summit, themed The Reform Imperative, Building a Prosperous and Inclusive Nigeria by 2030. While stating that Dangote refinery must be protected at all costs, he added that the $20 billion facility is a national asset that must be supported to function. Shettima's comments come on the heels of the industrial action by oil workers under the aegis of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan, over disputes with the 650,000 barrels per day Dangote refinery. He said, and I quote, Aliko Dangote is not an individual, he is an institution, and he is a leading light in Nigeria's economic parliament. And how we treat this gentleman will determine how outsiders will judge us. If he had invested $10 billion in Microsoft, Amazon, or Google, he probably might be worth $70 to $80 billion by now, but he opted to invest in his country, and we owe it to future generations to jealously protect, promote, preserve, and protect the interests of this great Nigeria. And he further said, I wish to call for caution, retrospection, and a deeper sense of patriotism from both labor and the organized private sector in defining and improving the relationship between labor and industry in the interest of maintaining our steadily improving economic fortunes. It's not about holding the whole nation to ransom because of a minor labor dispute. There's still more details of what the Vice President said, but you can find more on the story on page 5 and 6 of the Daily Trust. And now on to the last story from the Daily Trust from this morning. This headline here says, Tinubu orders reduction of 2026 Hajj fare. Tinubu orders reduction of 2026 Hajj fare. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has ordered an immediate review of the 2026 Hajj fares. The president directed the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria, NACON, to come up with new fares for the exercise within 2 days. Vice President Kashim Shettima handed down the president's directive during a meeting with management and board members of NACON at the presidential villa in Abuja on Monday. He called for synergy among national and state officials, including state governors, in streamlining and adopting a new set of fares for the exercise. He also urged prompt action by all stakeholders to ensure quick payments and timely remittances to the Central Bank of Nigeria to facilitate a hitch-free exercise. I think that's good news. And furthermore, it says, answering questions from journalists shortly after the meeting with the VP, Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, Ibrahim Adejia, said the meeting convened that the instance of the Vice President was to finalize preparations for the 2026 Hajj operations, particularly the determination of fares for the exercise. You can read more about what the President said on page 8 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Tinubu orders reduction of 2026 Hajj fare. Now let's move on to the next newspaper I have here with me this morning, and this is from The Nation. Council of State Police Council meets Thursday. Council of State Police Council meets Thursday. Council of State meeting will hold in Abuja on Thursday, according to Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume. It will be a hybrid meeting, physical and virtual. And this is coming from the SGF's office. Also to hold on Thursday is the meeting of the Police Council. Both meetings are slated for the Council Chamber of Aso Villa in Abuja. And its responsibility includes endorsement of some major appointments as recommended by the President, such as nomination of the Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, among others. And all leaving former heads of state and presidents are members, and also former chief justices and governors are also members of the august body. According to the statement on the meeting made available by Director of Information and Public Relations in the office of the SGF, Segun Imoyosen, reads, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, CON, has extended an invitation to members of the Council of State and Police Council to a hybrid strategic meeting scheduled for Thursday, October 9th, 2025. And according to the Permanent Secretary, Cabinet Affairs Office, Imanso Okop Mobong, the meeting aims to discuss matters of national importance and key issues affecting national security and policing. You can read and learn more about this story on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. The next story from The Nation, we have this coming from the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun. He says allocation to states rises by 111%. Allocation to states rises by 111%. According to allocation to states have increased by over 111%, according to the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of Economy, Olawale Edun. He said states are now awash with cash, adding that the additional funds empower states to drive growth and service delivery at the sub-national level. Speaking during a session titled The Reform Imperative, Building a Prosperous and Inclusive Nigeria by 2030 at the ongoing 31st Nigerian Economic Summit, NES 31 in Abuja, Edun identified exchange rates unification and fuel subsidy removal as the most significant reforms, freeing up about 5% of Nigeria's GDP into the Federation account. He further said the government had reached an agreement with the National Assembly to ensure timely budget execution and restore adherence to the normal fiscal calendar. He said, and I quote, "No more extensions of budget into the next year, which has created so much confusion in the system." There's still more details about this, and you can find this headline and the body of the story on page 2 of The Nation. Allocation to states rises by 111%. Avoid strike that undermines economy. Avoid strike that undermines the economy. This is coming from the federal government to oil workers. The federal government came hard on Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria yesterday over last month's strike during their face-off with Dangote Refinery and petrochemicals. He said, and I quote, "We cannot hold the whole nation to ransom because of issues that we can amicably settle across the table." This came from President Bola Tinubu. It was his first reaction to the situation, during which the union disconnected the gas supply to the refinery, in addition to limiting the pumping of crude oil to export terminals, an action likened to economic sabotage. The president spoke yesterday at the Nigeria Economic Summit Group event in Abuja, where he was represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima. He called for patriotism and caution, urging union leaders to maintain sensitivity to national security during their free agitations for industrial welfare. So that's the federal government telling oil workers not to sabotage the economy and to avoid strike that undermines the economy. You can read more details about what the president said as the next G on page 2 of The Nation. And that will be the last story we'll be picking from The Nation newspaper for this morning. And on to the next newspaper for today. I have some health news here. And this headline says choking during sex can result in stroke and paralysis. This is according to experts. And it says experts caution that choking is a dangerous sexual act that can result in stroke, convulsions, and even paralysis, even though pornography has successfully made it a sexual norm and a safe, quote, activity. They said that although choking during sex has been effectively established as a sexual norm and a safe practice by pornography, it is still a dangerous sexual behavior that can cause paralysis, convulsions, and stroke. These risks are frequently increased in people who already have medical issues, making awareness and caution essential. According to a study published in the journal The Archives of Sexual Behavior this week, it found that more than half of adults aged 35 and underreported being strangled by a partner during sexual activities. And it furthermore says that although choking is distinct and strictly refers to the partial obstruction of the trachea, it is commonly used in sexual activities. However, experts are warning that it is truly dangerous no matter how gentle couples may think they are being, and regardless of whether both partners like it in the moment. So this is a warning from health experts. They are telling you that choking during sex can result in stroke, convulsion of the Nigerian Tribune. next story from the Tribune for today says retired Air Vice Marshal Obierika dies mid-air on British Airways flights. That's sad news. A retired Nigerian Air Vice Marshal Professor Sita Obierika on Monday died on board a British Airways flight to Abuja as the crew of the airline battled fruitlessly to save the Anambra state-born military officer's life. The plane carrying him made an emergency landing at the El Prat Airport, Barcelona, as they struggled to resuscitate the ailing military officer. Excuse me. Tribune correspondent learned that the flight, which departed London's Heathrow Airport at 11 p.m. on Sunday, October 5th, was scheduled to land in Abuja at 5 a.m. on Monday, but made an unexpected detour to Barcelona after the incident, and it was gathered that the terminally ill retired AVM was being transported back to Abuja for further medication before his sudden demise. British Airways has already apologized to his trip at 2 p.m. on Monday, and they were expected to land in Abuja at 7 p.m. local time. That's a very sad and unfortunate news, and we'll pray that may Obierika rest in peace and God grants his family the fortitude to bear this loss. You can read more about the details of this incident on page 30 of Nigerian Tribune. The last story from a Tribune before I go on a break, or the second to the last story before I go on a break, and this headline says ASU mobilizes members for nationwide strike. ASU mobilizes members for nationwide strike. I think we should be getting ready for industrial action from ASU. The leadership of the Academic Staff Union of Universities has commenced mobilization of its members across all the universities in the country for an imminent nationwide strike action over the failure of the federal government to address the demands of the union. ASU had last week issued a 14-day nationwide strike notice to the federal government to resolve all outstanding issues, including the conclusion of the renegotiation of the contentious 2009 FGN-ASU agreement. Irked by the tepid responses ASU gets from the federal government, especially the silence it has maintained after the union had served the Minister of Education, Olatunji Alausa, and the Minister of Labour and Employment, Maigari Dingyadi, the 2-week ultimatum. The lecturers said they have no other option left than to mobilize their members to shut the universities on the expiration of the 14-day strike. And according to the union, the strike notice started from Sunday, September 28, 2025, and would first herald a 2-week warning strike before embarking on a total and indefinite strike action. Hopefully this doesn't last long and the government and ASU are able to come to a consensus, because you know what they say, when two elephants fight, the grass suffers, right? The grass in this case being the Nigerian students. So I pray, it is my hope that ASU and the government comes to a consensus, because if one strike starts like this, it's going to even lead to even more bigger issues. You can read more details about the story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. Before I read the last story from the Nigerian Tribune for this morning, before we go ahead and see the headlines on other national newspapers, I'll go on a very short break. And when I come back, we'll take a look at headlines from 3 more papers before we call it a wrap for the day. So don't go anywhere. It is still the Dailies on Radio Afinju.
For an ultimate entertainment experience.
Them bloody
no be so. Everybody want
an all-round gist with your spicy honey drops. Don't miss the fun, excitement, and updates on Afinju Arena. Only on Radio Afinju.
Apology for what you say, don't play. Or you will learn.
Olókoòwò ẹ súnmọ́ bí. Ẹ̀yin oníṣẹ́ oṣù náà ẹ mọ́ gbẹ̀yìn. Ẹ̀yin olókoòwò kéékèèké tẹ́ ẹ nílò ìrànlọ́wọ́ owó ẹ tara ṣàṣà máa bọ̀. Ètò káràkátà lórí rédíò Àfínjú ni kẹ́ ẹ mọ́ gbọ́ báyìí o. Lórí ètò yìí ni wọ́n ti máa sọ ìmọ̀ràn fáwọn oníṣẹ́ ọwọ́ àtoníṣẹ́ oṣù. Ìròyìn látọjú ọjà náà ń bẹ ń bẹ̀ láti mọ bí nǹkan ṣe ń lọ káàkiri àwọn ọjà wa. Ìrànlọ́wọ́ owó fáwọn olókoòwò kéékèèké ò ní gbẹ̀yìn lórí ètò.
Ètò káràkátà máa gbìnàyà ní gbogbo ọjọ́ ìṣẹ́gun Tuesday lórí rédíò Àfínjú ní déédéé aago 12 ọ̀sán.
Ẹ wò ó ọ̀pọ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ kágbọ̀n ìtọ́wò ni ẹ fi máa dùn ọbẹ̀. Ẹ lọ tẹ̀lé rédíò Àfínjú káàkiri àwọn àtẹ ayélujára kẹ́ ẹ lè jẹ mùkúntùn ètò káràkátà. Adédayọ̀ Dẹ́rínú ọmọ wọn lẹ́sẹ̀ kò jọmọ ó nù ni ó máa tọ́kùn ètò káràkátà. Ìdàgbàsókè ọrọ̀ ajé ló jẹ wá lógún.
When heavy rain begin fall and plenty water full everywhere, dey alert my people, shine your eyes as e dey happen for other places e fit reach your side.
Má ṣe da ìdọ̀tí sójú àgbàrá, gbé ilẹ̀ rẹ fún àwọn ọkọ̀ akólẹ̀.
No go put yourself for danger dey waka for flooded roads.
Gbọ́ o, ǹjẹ́ tó bá rí ẹnikẹ́ni tó hùwà tó lòdì sí òfin àmójútó ìdọ̀tí àti ẹ̀gbin, ẹ fi tó àwọn aláṣẹ létí. Report to the nearest authorities.
Má ṣe da ìdọ̀tí sójú àgbàrá.
Ìlera lọ́rọ̀. This awareness is brought to you by Radio Àfínjú.
everybody has a day when the sun stays away. Take heart in a new tomorrow. A little more love between makes for a brighter day. Never need worry, let one love set you free. One love keep us together. Living in a world, it's a struggle just staying alive. One love keep us together. Living in a world, it's a struggle just staying alive. Somebody tell me.
Yes, one love keeps us together because you have to love your neighbor before you can look out for them. So always have it at the back of your mind that it is love. It is only love that can keep us together as one, as a nation. You're welcome back to the Dailies on Radio Afinju, where we look at the stories making headlines on our national dailies, the stories making front pages of our everyday newspapers. And I'm still on the Nigeria Tribune, but before I look at this last story from the Nigeria Tribune, a quick hello to our Facebook audience. I can see Abib Obe, is it Obe or Obe? Correct me if I'm wrong. He's saying good morning, Ekweto, Habib Obelawo. Okay, so it's Obelawo. Habib Obelawo from Okeho or your state. Good to have you on the show this morning, Habib. Thanks for joining. Abiola Boluwatife, of course, is saying good morning, ma'am. Good morning to you too, Abiola. I hope you had a very restful night. And then I have Ayola Akinwale Habib is saying well done. Thank you very much, Akinwale Ayola. Good to have you on the show. So let's go back to the stories we have this morning. This next headline says 2027 OB challenges INEC, orders to address certificate forgery ahead of polls. Let's see what the body says. A former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, on Monday urged the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and other relevant agencies to thoroughly scrutinize the academic credentials of candidates ahead of the 2027 polls to prevent the embarrassment of letting certificate forgers into public offices in the country. He noted that, for example, some political office holders today came into office in 2023 using questionable certificates or swore to affidavits defending the certificates they possess. According to him, he said on his X handle, and I quote, "The danger of making crime a norm," he stated. "Whenever I talk about Nigeria being a crime scene, those who are part of the criminality and their hirelings will quickly start their noise making, attacking and blackmailing me. But how do you tell people that those whose integrity, character and behavior are supposed to be exemplary and emulated in society have become the very source of the nation's decay? How do you tell young Nigerians to be honest and upright when those they are supposed to emulate are the least to be emulated because they are criminals and dishonest?" Certificate forgery is a serious criminal offense in all countries of the world, and it is one of the most corrupt practices, heavily punished. You can read more on what Peter Obi is saying on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune, and that's the last story I will be looking at this morning from the Nigeria Tribune. Obi challenges INEC others to address certificate forgery ahead of 2027 polls. And now on to the next newspaper to look at this morning, the Punch newspaper. And I have this Metro story here that says, court remands a Lagos accountant for alleged 200 million naira theft. Court remands Lagos accountant for alleged 200 million naira theft. Justice Rahman Oshodi of the Lagos High Court has ordered the remand of an accountant, Ogwibe Nwachukwu, who was arraigned by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for alleged theft of 200 million naira to the Kirikiri Correctional Center. That's quite a lot of money. The EFCC, in a statement shared on Facebook on Monday, disclosed that the defendant, alongside his company, is facing 13 counts bordering on stealing. According to the EFCC, Nwachukwu in 2020 allegedly converted the sum of $36,000, which was entrusted to him by his former employer, Travel Star Web Logistics Limited. The EFCC added in another count that the suspect had also allegedly converted the sum of $156,000 belonging to the same company for personal use between January and July 2018. I mean, if this were a personal business and this kind of money is being converted, I think the business would have even run down by now. I'm not very sure, because this is quite a large sum of money for one person to steal. But you can find more details on the story on page 5 of Punch Nigeria newspaper. Let's look at the next story from the Punch as well. It says Enugu government minister trade words over alleged certificate forgery. The controversy surrounding the academic credentials of the Minister of Innovation, Science and Technology, Uche Nnaji, deepened on Monday as his media aide, Robert Ungu, accused Enugu State Governor Peter Mba of orchestrating the smear campaign against the minister. But in a swift reaction, the governor denied the allegation, asking the minister to carry your cross. Speaking during the press conference in Abuja, the minister's aide denied allegations that his principal, Nnaji, forged his university and National Youth Service Corps certificates, describing the claims as politically motivated. He alleged that the campaign was being driven by Mba to discredit the minister for political reasons. Ngo claimed, and I quote, "All these sponsored events are being coordinated by Governor Peter Mba of Enugu State, whom he accused of making Nnaji the scapegoat of his various challenges." And he further said the governor had given a new name to all his problems, Chief Uche Geoffrey Nnaji, Ugu said, alleging the attacks were linked to the governor's political ambitions. I think you can just read more details about this couple on page 7 of the Punch newspaper. And then the next story from the Punch also. Natasha resumes Senate today after 6 months suspension. After serving a 6-month suspension, the senator representing Kogi Central, Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, is set to officially resume plenary sessions along with other lawmakers today. The assurance was given by one of her lawyers, Victor Giwa, in an interview with The Punch. The upper chamber had earlier shifted its resumption from September 23rd to October 7, 2025, extending its annual recess by 2 weeks and altering deliberations of several key national priority. Her legal team has warned the Senate against any move to block her entry into the chamber, insisting that the Kogi Central lawmaker had already served out her punishment and is constitutionally entitled to resume legislative duties. You can read more details about this on page 8 of the Punch newspaper, and I think before the end of the day we will see if truly she is or has been allowed into plenary. So just look for the story on page 8 of the Punch. And now let's go to the Punch Sports on Punch Sports Extra. And this headline here says Nnadozie goes top as goalkeeper with most saves in England. Super Falcons goalkeeper Chiamaka Nnadozie continues to make headlines in England after climbing to the top of the Women's Super League saves chart, while also earning a nomination for the PFAWSL Fans Player of the Month award for September. Punch Sports Extra reports. The Brighton and Hove Albion shortstopper, who joined the English side from Paris FC in the summer, has matches the highest in the league so far. She narrowly edges Leicester City's Janina Litzig, who has 21 saves, and London City Lionesses Elene Lette, who has 19. And according to league statistics, Nnadozie has also kept 2 clean sheets, making her one of the most consistent goalkeepers in the division. You can read more details about this headline on page 6 of Punch Sports Extra. Quickly, we'll look at another sports news. World Cup qualifiers. Eagles arrive South Africa for Lesotho clash. The Super Eagles have arrived in Polokwane, South Africa, ahead of Friday's crucial 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifier against Lesotho. Punch Sports Extra reports. According to a statement released by the team's media officer, Promise Efoge, the camp officially opened on Monday at the Ranch Hotel in Polokwane. The technical crew and backroom staff, led by head coach Eric Shell, are already on the ground, while players are arriving in batches via Johannesburg from their respective locations. Training is expected to begin today as the team prepares for the match against the Crocodiles at the Peter Mokoba Stadium, and it is gathered that assistant coach Daniel Ogumodede will join the camp later today after overseeing Remo Stars' 2-0 Nigeria Premier Football League win over Wiki Tourist on Monday. You can see and read more details on the story on page 7 of the Punch Sports Extra. now on to the last newspaper for the morning. The last newspaper for the morning, which is the Guardian newspaper. And this headline here says, Awujale stew. Over 30 aspirants screened as more jostle for throne. No fewer than 35 aspirants have so far been screened by the ruling House Forum as potential candidates for the throne of the Awujale of Ijebuland. It was also gathered that more princes are still jostling for the revered crown. Fushembuwa ruling house is next in line to produce the next Awujale to succeed the late Obasikiru Kayode Adetono, who hailed from Anikilaya ruling house. The Olori Ebi of the house, Adedokun Ajidagba, who spoke during the family gathering of more than 200 princes and princesses of the Fushembuwa ruling house at the Ilenla quarters, Agusembi Ijebode, yesterday declared that the crown of the Awujale stool is not for sale and would only go to a rightful and legitimate candidate of the family. Further reaffirmed that the Ijebode royal family remains strong and united, emphasizing that the Awujale stool is a sacred symbol of heritage and must not be commercialized. You can see more details on the Awujale stool and this story on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. And to wrap it all up for the morning with this headline here that says a student loan NEL fund kicks as institutions hike tuition fees, charges for profits. The Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund, has expressed concern over the astronomical increase in tuition fees by some institutions ranging between 20 and 521%. A document obtained from the fund's Internal Risk Management Unit noted that the recent surge in tuition fees across various institutions, particularly for programs such as medicine, nursing, and law, has placed a significant financial burden on students and strained the fund's operations. Titled Report and Framework to Mitigate the Impact of Increased Institutional Charges on the Fund's Operations, the document listed the affected